Good afternoon once again. My name is Marlon Hill, attorney Marlon Hill, and welcome to the Big Conversations, Enough Action here at the Marcus Garvey Amphitheater. We were supposed to be at the Esplanade. We had to do some shifting around. We have the Rosses over there with their meetings. I don't know what's on the agenda, but we're going to make sure that some specific things on the agenda. Denisha Prendergast from Jamaica just completed her documentary on the life journey and the life of the Rastafari all across the world. And we went into our reasoning about I&I to industry. And I think it's very apropos that I'm stepping into this conversation, a workshop conversation for the next hour, right, about minding your business and securing your creative legacy, right? We're here at CariFesto. I'm kind of somewhat returning back home, finished part of my law school here in Barbados, went to law school in the United States, currently now reside in Miami, Florida, as a business lawyer for the last 30 years. Now, this session is not intended to be a panel discussion. It's a fireside chat. I have microphones in the stands. Please raise your hand if you have a microphone. One microphone, two microphones, and the gentleman here from AccuSound. They are broadcasting live right now on CariFesto TV. If you didn't know, you can send the link to anyone who can't make it here this afternoon. We're going to be here for the next hour. And then after I'm complete, there's going to be a session right here on the Marcus Garvey stage on branding, taking your brand global. So after you've heard what I have to talk about, then you're going to hear from some of our professionals and practitioners about taking your brand global, right? So what I'm going to talk to you about today is really the life cycle of an artist, right? Who is an artist? That definition can definitely be debated, right? But more often than not, in my last 30 years, artists are concerned with their art and their art form, but not concerned with the business of their art, right? And I think it needs to be the other way around, because in order for you to secure your legacy, whether you are a choreographer or you are a craft artist or you are a visual artist, musician, producer, writer, culinary arts, architecture, it really doesn't matter. We have this rich, rich region so filled with culture and heritage. And I think that our culture and our heritage and our art is actually an oil well, right? It is one of our richest assets, and we have to mind our business of our art. But before you can do that as an artist, you need to understand what is your legacy of your art, right? And you may not be able to see the overhead, but you'll get my contact and we'll send you a copy. One of the most important things when an artist, as defined, comes into my office is, I want to understand, why are you pursuing your art? What is it that is important to you, right? It is not what you are creating, it's why, right? Because when you have your full-time job and bills have to be paid, right? Nobody's asking you about your why. Bills have to be paid, but there's a reason why you're passionate about your art, right? The moment that you can convert your why into that passion project, into a sustainable, full-paying job, you are on your way to writing a legacy, right? You're a mass designer. There's so many art forms in the Caribbean because of our history and heritage, orally and otherwise, that once it's documented, right, that art form has to be turned into a viable business, right? So understanding the why is very, very important, right? So one of the things that to understand your creative legacy is very important. What is your body of work? What is your reputation? What is your cultural impact that you're having in society? Whether you're from Suriname, Guyana, Barbados, Jamaica, listening online, and you are thinking, what is my role in the world, in your space, in terms of defining your legacy, right? And every artist, and truth be told, our education system is not centered around artists, right? The colonial legacies and the education system does not prioritize this oil well of art. It does not, right? So it's very important for artists to really understand what is your legacy, what is your body of work. Why is that important? We just heard, if those of you who are here listening on Carifista TV, about the Races talking about what they are creating, ownership of land, right? When you own land, right, everybody expects you to have when you own land, you expect you to have your what? Title, your deed, right? But who gets to determine what you own? First, it has to start with you, right? Ownership. Before you can get to income streams, you have to own. And why do you need to own? You need to own the income streams in terms of sustainable longevity for your family going forward. Now, you can't see that up there, but ultimately, for many artists, you know, they're so busy doing their art, they forget about the part that you have your personal life and you have your artist business life. And many times, the personal life and the artist life is intertwined when they should be separated. Why should they be separated, right? They are expensive. How do you know that your artist, your creative legacy, is operating in a way that is earning money from what you're creating, right? You can't, whether you go to, what is the name of the office here in Barbados again? Corporate Affairs and Intellectual Property, CAIPO, right? Right? Whatever the country that you come from, right? There is an entity that's helping you to create your business. You get some people call it the TRN, some people call it the TIN, your tax identity number. You go to the bank, you open an account, right? And you open your business to separate your artist life from your personal life. It's very important because that entity is going to put you on a path to understanding exactly how are you going to earn as a musician? How are you going to earn as a cultural group, right? If you formed, let's take an example. Square One, right? It's a group. How many people in the group, right? How many people, who owns the name Square One? What percentage does each band member own, right? How do you pay the expenses of Square One, right? How do you know that you're earning from the tour, right? You're creating the corporate entity to manage the business affairs of the artist and the artist group. It is very, very important that you decide very early on as an artist, whether you're a single artist, painting, fashion designer, architecture, create the business for your work. In establishing the business, now you're going to decide, okay, some of the things that are important that people talk about in terms of intellectual property, right? Intellectual property generally has to do with trademarks, copyrights, patents. I'm not going to go into the details of what that really means in terms of those three areas. What's very important for you to know is that when you create something, original work, whether it's registered or not, you own the rights to that work. The original work, original composition, original design, right? Original literary works. You own the rights to that work. The reason, generally, that you register to work is that if anyone uses your works without your permission and you have to go to court, generally speaking, you should be able to get your attorney's fees back. And when you register the work, it's like having a title to the ownership of your work. The trademark has to do with your brand, right? That's when you see the little R in the circle, right, next to the name. That's when you know it's officially registered. When you see the TM and the SM, they may be in the process of registering the work. But until you have that registration R in the cycle, it is not fully registered. That's a trademark. You could trademark the name. It could be a slogan. It could be the color that you're associating with your artistry. It could be the You know, when you have visual artists and they sign at the bottom right, it could be your signature, right? Um, it- Many ways in order to protect your name and your brand. Copyrights, original works, literary works, sound recordings, choreography, visual arts. You know, we're on our phones. I see someone taking a picture there now. Who owns that picture that she's taking of me? Let me pose. Right? Is it Instagram or is it the person's whose phone that she took the picture? Right? And be sure that you're reading the terms and conditions on these digital platforms that you're going on. Everybody scrolls down. They just scroll and scroll and scroll. I agree. Yes or no? I agree. Right? And you don't even know what you're signing. That's a contract between you and that platform. Have you given up your entire catalog to them? All your videos, all your photos, right? You got to make sure that you understand what the relationship is between those platforms. I mentioned real quickly patents and industrial design, the fashion designers in the world. You know, we have a client right now that designed a specific jeans for the ladies that hangs in a particular way to accentuate the human condition. Let me just say that, right? And you know these fashion knockoffs like Fashion Nova? Fashion Nova took the design, started to sell it, and say, well, we can do it. No, you can't do that. So right now, they're in the middle of a court over that particular fashion design of how the jeans is cut, and Fashion Nova using that industrial design as a fashion designer. You never know exactly how creative we are. Want to talk real quickly about the technology. You know, AI is out there. This is not an AI conversation, but the most important thing is that you got to make sure that you understand what your works are and how you are protecting them, right? Because, and where you are actually uploading those works. Because you have to remember now that AI is an algorithm that's pulling from all the different sources, right? So just make sure that you are doing what you are supposed to be doing as an artist, wherever you are, just because we may be from an island of 500,000 or 2 million or 200,000 or maybe 50,000 doesn't mean that your work does not have creative value globally. It's very important. Moving on real quickly, contracts and licensing. You form the business, you register the brand, right? You register the copyrights, you go on to the IP office, you're doing all the things to register your work. You start hiring people, right? Hiring a manager, booking agent. You ask someone to design your website without a contract. They design the website, and then you don't pay them. And the design of the website says, no payment, no website. Because the design of the website is an artist just like you. Make sure that you have a contract that says, if I hire you to design my logo or design my website or to provide being a musician in my studio, that anything that you produce is owned by me, the artist, right? That is a contract that is very, very important in the scheme of things. We're here at CARIFESTO, the National Cultural Foundation, in collaboration with BTMI and in collaboration with the Ministry of Culture and in collaboration with the Caribbean Development Bank. You think CARIFESTO is free this session? Do you think it's free? It's not free. Somebody has to pay for it. Taxpayers, grant holders, sponsors. Who's sponsoring? Who's on the logo there? On the logo we have CARICOM, we have NCF, right? And you have some of the other sponsors when you go to the grand market. Somebody has to pay in order for AccuSound to provide the video and the audio recording and CARIFESTO TV on YouTube. Someone has to pay for it, right? Those agreements need to be in place in order to make CARIFESTO happen, right? Who owns the rights, you think, to the recording of this session? That's a question. Which entity? We're on CARIFESTO TV. YouTube is National Cultural Foundation of Barbados. You just saw in the news this week where the government of Barbados purchased the rights from Banyan, right? Of digital archives. Ownership of your content is the most important thing that you can walk away from. Ownership of your name, ownership of your likeness, ownership of your image, and ownership of your content. We just finished with Donisha and the reasoning with I to Industry. Bob Marley passed away in 1981, right? No will, no estate, no trust, right? But his image, all the photos, all the videos, all the music, all the compositions are now in the care of a foundation, a trust that distributes the benefits of the rights from all of that stuff for the benefit of the family for X number of years after he died in 1981, and then the works become public domain, right? You don't want to be an artist, visual, choreography, music, writing, and to have your content not protected and not in a safe place for your family not to understand what do they do next, right? Because the foundation, Bob Marley, they have to decide as a group which music can be used in which video. Tanisha was just here. She just happens to be the granddaughter. She can write the foundation and say to the foundation she would like to synchronize use of certain music and videos in her documentary that was screened here this morning. Obviously, she's a granddaughter. She's going to get certain courtesies and probably not charged for the use of that content. Someone else, commercially though, has to write to your family in the event that you're not here, asking you for permission to use, whether it's a license, a single license, or whether it's something for education for free, right? You get to decide with the ownership of your content, the cost or no cost, right? And they have to write to your business and request permission to use your artworks for the benefit of whatever it is that you're using. It's very, very important, and that has to do with licensing agreements. You have some commission contracts, yep. What that means is a percentage of your works from the sale of your work, custom work. And we already talked about work for hire. Work for hire. Let me talk real quickly. I'm coming from the United States of America. Please restrain all happiness. But truth be told, Caribbean people have been transcending the world from the turn of the century. Our roots are not just here in our respective nations and countries. We're in London, we're in Miami, we're in New York, we're in Houston, we're in Toronto, we're throughout the Caribbean region, we're in Africa, right? So our creative expression, in order for us to earn the most that we can from it, right? You have to have a plan. How are you going to sell beyond the borders of Barbados? How are you going to get the word out? Do you need to have an exhibit? Do you need to travel? Right? You go to the Grand Market and you see the fashion designers, the craftsmen, craftswomen, they have their booths, right? In order to bring those goods into Barbados, someone had to organize it. Someone had to say, duty free, you can come in with those t-shirts, you can come in with those earrings, right? The government had to coordinate that. But if you are doing it yourself, you're going to maybe have to work with Invest Barbados. Invest Barbados is going to contact the Invest Miami or the Invest New York or the Invest Toronto office and coordinate if you are making a trip for cultural exchange. Maybe you just want to expose your work, not to sell it. You are going to have to make plans with regards to how you're going to get there. And before you even get there, how are you going to travel? Are you traveling on a particular visa? Every country has a right to determine who comes in and how. Typically for artists, it's usually a P visa or an O visa, right? O visa is for, let's say, Alison Hines. And a P visa maybe for Is a Vibe, Trumpet Boys, or that's a group. The P visa is for a group. The P3 visa is on an exchange. You may be going up for an exhibit at a university or something, but you can go to the U.S. Embassy website and learn more about those artists, cultural groups. Because one of the best ways to earn is taking your work publicly and going global with it. And I'm happy to talk to you specifically. We talked about your brand. You register your brand at KIPO, Intellectual Property Office, which is probably somewhere around here in St. Michael, right? But let's say you want to sell your products in Europe, or you have a market in Africa. You want to protect your brand, you may want to take a look at the Madrid Protocol, right, for registering your brand in multiple territories. Very, very simple. Just Google Madrid Protocol. You can see how much it costs to register your trademark in multiple territories. And you have the Berne Convention, which has to do with registering your copyright across member countries, right? And we won't go into too much detail there. Transnational travel, immigration. Whenever we have, in my last 30 years working with artists, you don't just wake up tomorrow and say, I'm going to travel to the UK and Canada and the US to exhibit and sell my work. It must be part of your business plan, right? Every artist is so consumed in the studio and the gallery, right? And not thinking about their art form in the form of a business plan, right? Neil and Massey, Answer McCall, Republic Bank, all of these corporations have board members and people that are developing a strategic plan. And I know that sometimes when you're an artist, it's kind of like you're alone on an island, right? You really have to develop an advisory team to kind of help you with a business plan as to what you are going to do next. And traveling overseas is important in terms of building up your resume, your bio, documenting, creating a catalog for your work, making sure that it's in a secure hard drive, in a hard drive, in a hard drive, right? Because cybersecurity and access to your works is very possible, right? So you got to make sure that your work is documented, right? Making sure that you have a robust social media, internet presence so people know that you are doing real work, right? Spend the money up front and get that done up front. It will make a huge, huge difference. Document any awards, any special speaking engagements, any accomplishments, anything that you receive from the Ministry of the Culture, the Cultural Development, Cultural Foundation. Document these things, because in the event that you are applying for a visa to go to a particular territory, they're going to ask for these things, right? They're going to ask for these things. Let me move real quickly to the bane of all of our existence, money. Marlon, where do I get the money to fund what I'm so passionate about? Right? And the reason why I started with you making sure that you understand what the why is that you have to be able to explain to your family members who may want you to be a doctor, lawyer, architect, engineer, about why the passion for your art is important. And not only that, why you are getting so many likes and calls and requests for your art form, right? You gotta start at home. If you don't have the support at home, there's a circle of friends. You gotta build the support for funding, right? Something called crowdfunding. Start a crowdfunding where people can give $10 at a time, right? You send them photos about what you're doing and videos, make them feel included in your work. Talk to your bank where you deposit your money and talk to them about your work in terms of funding. And the reason why the documentation of all your history of your work is so important as well is that they want to know, Mr. Hill, Mr. Artist Friend, how are you making money, sir? How many sales? What are your expenses? Just because you're an artist doesn't mean that there's no revenue and there's no expenses, right? And let me say this, that sometimes you may even to consider, do I need a non-profit entity? I don't want to go down this road too much, but I want to just plant a seed here. a non-profit entity to support the growth of, let's say you've created an original art form, but you don't have the funding. You may need to create a non-profit entity over here and have a for-profit entity over here operating at a parallel place, because the NCF and the government of Barbados may not necessarily have funding for your for-profit, but they may have funding for your non-profit entity that has to do with incubating artists, helping to teach young people about macrame, or teaching young people about being creating ceramics, right? You can hone your craft in your community as a non-profit, but over here, have the for-profit gallery that is selling your work. And it's something to consider in regards to funding, because dollars are hard to come by, right? And we can have some more specific questions about. So I want to close so we can get to the questions before we go into our session, because I know that some of you came here with some very specific questions. I don't know if anybody is monitoring online. Happy to take any questions. I want you to register your work early, right? Protect your brand, protect your reputation, treat it with the utmost, highest priority, your brand and reputation, right? I don't care if it's family, your grandmother. If she's doing something for your artist business, you need an agreement with Mama P. Okay? Boundaries, expectations, transparency, right? It's not something we do well as an artist. Develop a team. Who's your team? Marketing, right there. Every business has 3 main components: the money, the operations, and the marketing, right? 3 main legs on most businesses. I don't care what type of business you are as an artist. You must understand what it is that you are doing, how are you going to pay for it, how are you going to get the word out there for more people to want to buy your work or support your work. Whether you're a big artist, emerging artist, it's the same formula. Very, very important, right? Please, my artist friends, watch your money. Money in, money out. Okay? Don't be doing your work over here and then you're not watching your money over here. You need to understand from your team, financial advisors, banking, accountant, whoever, manage your money, right? So that you can manage your business. Many people don't take advantage of governmental resources. Make an appointment with your Minister of Parliament. Go and see the Minister of Culture. Go to the NCF. Talk to them about what you're working on. Whatever that cultural entity and institution is in your nation, make sure that you are making an appointment to go and talk to them about your work. It's very, very important. You know, we treat government sometimes like government is over here and we're just going to whisper and be arm's length. No, we are all democracies, right? You got to engage your government and speak to your ministries about what you're working on and why you are worthy of an investment. It's an investment in it. It's not a donation or a grant, right? Because artists is not just for performing here in the amphitheater. You're bringing money into the country. How many people you think are here for Carifesto? How many territories, right? Hundreds, thousands of people. They're in a hotel, they're buying food, they're shopping, right? They're doing all types of things. So even though it's not free, there's an exchange between culture and government. Make sure that you take advantage of your consular relationships. This is something that I don't know why more people don't take advantage of this. You have an ambassador and a consul general in various countries that are responsible for promoting brand Barbados, brand Belize, brand Jamaica. Call them up and say, listen, Consul General Adams, I'm thinking about coming to South Florida. Can you introduce me to anyone that is in the fashion industry? This is way in advance before you get the visa, you know. Right? You don't just wake up and just go to South Florida to be a part of a fashion show. So it's part of a plan. Call your consul generals and ambassadors and ask them for recommendations and support. They represent you because they're an extension of your government, which you elect. Why would you not take advantage of that? Right? Um, some people may think that being more visible in your community, sometimes you have to give a little back to your community to kind of get more, right? There may be various examples of how you can do that. Could be your old secondary school or place of worship, or it could be working with seniors. Share your art and your craft and your superpower to get the word out about your works. Last but not least, I'm going to go straight to questions, is please promise me that if you're a working artist right now, or emerging, or even established, and you haven't done this yet, make sure that you complete your will or your trust by the next time you come in contact with me, right? It has to be done, right? Your family needs to understand where your work is, your passwords, what are your instructions, how can people use your work, your moral rights, right? Some artists may have, specifically, I don't want my visual arts exhibited in that location because it may be associated with those people. You need to be very specific in your willingness to, because you're no longer here, right? You're no longer here, and you have to give specific instructions in that. So that's the end of the session. I'm going to go straight to questions now. First question from anyone. Microphone for her, please. She's right behind you. Please introduce yourself. Tell me whether you're an artist or connected to an artist, or you're here doing some recognizance for an artist.
Hi, hello, good evening to everyone. My name is Shirley Clark, and I am far from an artist. I'm a pharmacist. But your first introduction was that our culture is an oil well, and I agree with that. So I want to know across the CARICOM, across the Caribbean region, if you do not think because of the many careers, professionals you say have to assist the artists, what subject area should be mandatory from Form 1 and all of the secondary schools or primary schools in the Caribbean?
I'm not the Minister of Education for your country.
Just a suggestion.
Recommendation, suggestion.
Yeah.
I mean, in my sense and in my view, you know, and I can speak for my wife, Carla. Her family's from Trinidad, and she went to an art school in Miami. It's a conservatory. It's a high school for the arts, right? And there are many schools in the United States that have an arts curriculum, but it's policy, right? The government has to make a decision. Is our creativity an oil well? And if it is, what infrastructure do we need to place around the oil well to get the most out of the rig, out of the well? That's the bottom line, right? So what do you do there? You have to kind of figure out, okay, what are the talents that are most indigenous to our nation? Belize, Barbados, Jamaica, Trinidad and Tobago, right? Where are they? How are they organically being cultivated, right? And then incorporating a curriculum with instructions and the tools and instruments, and within has to be an investment. If it's an oil well and you know there's oil, you have to invest in the infrastructure, right? Venues, technology, the tools of the craft, the education journey, and the celebration that an artist can be just as successful, maybe even sometimes even more, than other professions, right? Not to draw any comparisons, but it's to invest in the infrastructure, I would say. And the artist could be a part of crafting the curriculum, actually, right? So if you have an idea for a curriculum, why don't you take it to your Ministry of Culture and your Ministry of Education, try to get them in one room, and propose what the curriculum could look like. Tell them you have identified some funding sources that could support the development of this infrastructure, and then start the conversation. Question in the back. The microphone for him there, please.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Alex. I'm a photographer. Just a two-part question. You mentioned the Madrid system, which when I saw Barbados was a member nation of. Do we have to register twice? For instance, if we have Kaipo, do we just register to the Madrid system and then have that throughout all the member states?
My IP legal friend there, not a member country. You got to check that. First and foremost, Chris, right? Catalog your work.
Alex.
You have Alex. Catalog your work. You have your volumes. You have your series, right? So you have Marcus Garvey, volume number 1, right? Errol Barrow, volume number 2. However many are in that catalog. And then start off with registering at home. Go to the Kaipo office and talk about what you can do to go for. But my sense, if there's a territory where your work, Alex, is going to be shown more often than not, likely in the territories where people are familiar with your work, I would recommend registering your work in that particular country. UK, Canada, US, you can start there.
Okay, and I'm going to give you the mic soon, but secondary, you mentioned about registering the business. I just wanted to know, in terms of, like you said, registering your work, does your work come under the official registration of the business? So if, say, my business is 246 Productions, all work that I produce under that is registered under that, or do we have to register them separately?
Great question. You are still the photographer, the person, right? I'm assuming no one else has ownership interest in 246 Productions, right? Does anyone else have an ownership interest?
No.
Yeah, it's owned at 100%. You can decide, right? But the works is still, you are still the author, the creator, the producer of that work, right? It's a great place to start. Put it on there. You can do it both ways, as long as nobody else has an interest in your company.
Okay, and that also goes for, let's say, slogans or business processes. Like, say, I come up with something new and innovative.
You can't miss by putting all your works under your company.
Okay.
Right? You have a registration with your company, you have a TRN number, bank account, you get your corporate documents, you have your share certificate, 100% Alex ownership, right? That's registered with the Intellectual Property Office. Something happens to you unexpectedly, your will and your trust is going to dictate exactly who owns your company, what happens with your catalog, how it can be used, how it can be monetized. They want to use it in a commercial or on TV, or Barbados Today or The Nation want to use your works. They have to contact your family through your company.
Oh, okay.
So following on from, my name is Tiffany. Following on from that, I'm going to use his same scenario. So what if he comes out with a magazine where he's putting out his work and maybe other artists' work as well within this being showcased within this magazine, and it has a particular name that he wants only his magazine to have. He doesn't want anybody else to be reusing the name. Is that going to be coming under his business as well, or does he need to go and get the name of this publication?
The brand, the copyrights, the photos, the videos, all the original works created by Alex is owned by his company. If he's doing business with other photographers, other writers, he's going to have an agreement with them, whatever those expectations are, where they, it could be for free, where they're giving you, but it has to be in writing as to exactly how are they going to transfer their original work to you. How is it going to be used? For how long? Is there a cost? The magazine brand is on the 246 Productions, right? There are writers, there are photos. You have the magazine. It could be digital. It could be on YouTube. It's in print. It's at the hotel, but it's still under the company. Take control and ownership of the brand and the content associated with the brand. That is the most important thing that you can do as an artist, is to monitor your assets. It's your oil well, So nobody can go and dig in it and pull out your oil without your permission.
Right, but does he have to do anything additional to protect the publication or the name that the publication has?
The publication is the copyright once it's finally done.
Okay.
Right, because you have already... Go ahead, Shana. Sure.
So I'm Fiona. I'm going to answer. But first, I'm going to suggest for the curriculum-based question that...
This is the memo to the Ministry of Culture and Education?
Oh, no. It's just a suggestion
Okay.
to today.
Okay.
Where it goes from here is where it goes from here. However, I think for all curricula, not per se art, but business. You touched on it, and business structures. There are so many different types of business structures. And age and stage, so different age and stage. And that, to me, is for secondary schools, perhaps from third form, that's a suggestion as to what can be included in a curriculum. It helps entrepreneurs, it also helps users, and it helps creators. So everybody can fall under that umbrella. In terms of your question, Barbados is not a signatory to Madrid. Therefore, trademarks, if that's what you were looking at for the brand, are registered separately as a trademark in Barbados. We are not like the US, but the US in any event you have to use it to get it. So use is an important element for trademarking. In terms of, back to your question, the magazine, he touched on it in one of his earlier slides, Marlon did. Contract is your best friend. So when you create something, you're Alex. Alex, you need to recognize that if you're going to have a company, the company is the baby that one day will talk back to you. So you need to make sure the baby is properly empowered so that when it talks back to you, you understand it. So you need to have a license contract or an assignment contract. An assignment is a sale, a license is like rent. And you create your company accordingly. And in terms of your structure, then that structure would be reflective of what you want to put in the company, because the company might not one day be talking to you, and what you want to keep for yourself. That's the structure, and he touched on it, Marlon touched on it in his slides. In terms of your question, contract is your best friend. So if you want to do the magazine, the brand magazine, that's a trademark registration, that's a standalone. The sad part about it is because we're not necessarily Madrid Protocol, it means that you have to register in Barbados and separately in Belize, which is Madrid, and separately in Antigua, also Madrid, separately in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
For those countries that are signatory to Madrid, you can do a singular registration and you can cover the base countries, but remembering that in the US, you have to have use.
Yeah.
So even if you're in Madrid, you can't use it unless you're a use.
Right. And Fiona, Alex, it's part of your plan. What is your global plan for 246 Productions? How are you going to take that global? What territory? Where's the target market? What type of photography are you in? Is it special events? Is it landscapes? Is it artistry? There are different people that will want to collect your work or license your work, right? So that global plan will determine exactly where you want to register your brand, the trademark, or register the catalog of images that you don't have to register all the images, because you probably have thousands, right? Pick the ones that are more resonating in the marketplace. You're getting more requests. And as you grow as an artist, what's called provenance, you gain equity. You become more well-known. You start to become a master. And your pricing goes up and up and up, right? And that's what happens when you're an artist, whether you're 16 or 25 or you're 55, you are going to grow on this life cycle of your legacy, right? And you can't wait until you are in your sunset years to start getting things in order, even though you can do that. But if you have started from the beginning, you have now built a pathway to kind of be full-time as an artist, which is the ultimate goal. Last final questions. Yes. My lady who has been taking copious minutes of the proceedings.
Well, I'm here.
Please introduce yourself.
I'm Denise Noel de Beek. I'm Trinidadian, living here. So my colleague and I, Theron Shaw from Trinidad, have a question. It's really around producing music. Let me just say it like this, okay? So my daughter is a singer. She is in classical music, and she's trying to bring indigenous art forms along with classical, what we consider classical music, with Theron's input probably and others.
Yeah.
Question of all the things you talked about, where do we start? I mean, she's already established, but trying to pull things together to build, well, what are we trying to build?
So basically, the question is creating new work with different entities.
Some of it
orchestra-
may be heritage, folklore stuff.
Right, but also with European orchestras.
Yeah.
And the ownership rights between the composer, the arranger, the orchestra.
Well, she's putting together a symphony, right? She's putting together a symphony, and it takes a plan, right? She's the conductor. She needs certain people to be a part of her symphony. Some of it are the folklorists. Some of it are the percussionists. Some of it are right? And she needs to kind of bring all of that together in one studio for them to kind of talk about the composition. And like Fiona said, contracts are your friend, right? Where she's putting together the symphony, an original work, which is a composition of other artists. And some artists may say, well, yes, you can pay me for my time and to bring my musical brilliance into your symphony, but I would like a percentage of the sales of the symphony. Some artists may say, you know what? I just want exposure. I want to be a part. I love what you're doing, right? I would sign that work for hire agreement and sign away my rights. But so she has to put together the parts of the symphony under her company.
Oh, company.
The symphony may have a particular brand separate from the company, because you can have multiple brands under your company, as a trademark. Right? Just because it's 246 Productions doesn't mean you have a brand that's called St. Michael and a brand that's called St. Philip in terms of the photography. But in her sense, you can have a company that has various, and let's say you're doing a production, the symphony is going to be here. You may even want to create a separate company for the symphony because of liability. So the parent company owns Symphony Inc. 100% because it's going to be outdoor. There's rain, there's hurricane season, just to kind of protect the assets from the parent company. So those are some of the considerations. But it's a symphony where there are different parts, and it's all part of the company, and everyone needs to know their role, their expectations, and we can all earn from it.
Thank you.
Yeah? Final couple questions, and we have to move to the last session. Yeah. Microphone for the young lady over here. Where's our next panel up and running? One more question. Excellent.
Hello? Okay. Hi,
Excellent.
good afternoon. My name is Carla Bella Brennan. I work as Barbadinista on Instagram. And I also have a part of my work where I make original illustrations and I then make them into key rings, stickers, prints, etc. And I went to film school a couple years ago, and we were always told by my professor there about poor man's copyright. So I wanted to know if that's something legitimate
There's a
or
myth.
not really.
It's an urban St. Michael myth of putting your copyright into an envelope and sending it back to yourself. Miss Barbanista, please get the application. Spend the nominal amount of money to register the volume of your works. Pack them together so you don't have to spend multiple filing fees, and register the work and get your title. Poor man's copyright, I don't recommend it.
Okay, no problem. Thank you.
But the moment you created your work, you still have rights to it,
Right.
Even though you don't have it registered. Registering it gives you a layer of protection. If anybody messes with you, take them out.
All right, perfect.
Any other follow-up?
Well, is that...
What about Barbanista? Is it a trademark?
I have it registered with Kaipo as a business, as a sole proprietorship.
So registering it as a business is different from registering the trademark. Take note.
Right.
Registering the company doesn't mean that you have the trademark. You have to register the trademark, which is owned by the business.
Okay, so when you said to register my volume of work, that is...
The content, the illustrations, the
Right.
sketches, you probably have volumes of things that...
So basically put it together as a catalog and then take that to Kaipo and ask for help with registration?
Absolutely.
Okay, I'll work on that.
Yeah, man.
All right, thank you.
Final question. All right, excellent. We're going to now be taking the big conversation and enough action into branding. We're going to take a quick 2-minute break, and our panel is going to get ready set about taking your brand global right here on the Marcus Garvey stage. Thank you so much. Oh, let me just say, to reach me at Marlon Hill on Instagram, anywhere, MarlonHill. Cell number 305-244-4456. It's on LinkedIn, it's on Instagram, it's on Facebook. Send me a DM note if you had any residual questions or any other thing that you are trying to dream up to take global. But our good panel is going to talk to you about branding and taking your global now. Yes, you get a copy of the presentation as well. Absolutely. 305-244-4456. Use it with grace. 305-244-4456. WhatsApp, text message, and then, the Instagram, you can always send me a DM as well. All right, thank you for being here.